This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 244 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. The first of the regular season, the 2026 regular season, is officially underway. Make sure you're following Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera86. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to listen, you can do that there. But if you want to be a part of the chat and the conversation, you're doing that right here on YouTube. And you can support the show with Super Chat, Super Thanks, Super Stickers. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat right now. Jeff Cohen, Maureen, Pantrice in here. Appreciate you all for being in here. We got 25 people in the room. Keep filing in. And we're going to have a great show today. We're going to be recapping the first series, a series win, although some may think it's good, some may think it's bad. I said the good, bad, and ugly of this first series win against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And here to join me on the show today is a good friend. He's the host of Mets Daily, the man, the myth, the legend, Jake Brown in the house. How you doing, Jake?
This is a pickleball tan, folks. It's a pickleball burn. It is not a Met game burn. It is not a great vacation. It is the depths of suburban New Jersey pickleball burn, and it's also my blood boiling from the Mets loss. It took me this donut I just ate before we started is the only thing that cheered me up. I'm still a little bit pissed off.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? Like the team wins a series against Pittsburgh, and the come away at the end is just a little bit of disappointment from how the series kind of finished off. And, you know, obviously you're playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is more of an up and coming team. And the Mets figure out a way to get, like you said, get your blood boiling. And let's lower the blood pressure right now. We'll start off with the good of what happened this weekend. First off, I mean, how about on opening day, the fact that they were able to chase the ace of the staff in Paul Skeens. I was shocked that it happened so early. He only got 2 outs in the game before he gave up 5 runs, and that was with the Mets already down by 2. You thought possibly the game was going to be over at that point, right? Paul Skeens has been one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in all of baseball. Some may say Tariq Skubal. But it was great to see the Mets able to put up good at-bats, right? It was a good first impression for this new offense, right? You add Jorge Polanco, you add Bo Bichette, you add Luis Robert Jr. to the mix. You got Soto in his second year, Lindor doing his thing, Beatty, the whole 9 year, Alvey, you know how the deal is. But to see the Mets put up good at-bats against Paul Skeens, you saw it in that first at bat for Luis Robert Jr., where he had that 10-pitch walk that really set the tone for the offense. It was nice and refreshing to see them against a great pitcher.
Yeah, listen, you almost forgot about Thursday from today. It was like the roller coaster ride of this series was all over the place. And, like you said, it started magically. And, parking, getting there was, I got there 1:10. I got there just before first pitch due to all the traffic, but made it in. And thank God, I feel bad for those people that did miss the first inning, because how electric was that? I mean, from, Freddie Peralta's first 2 batters, the homer, then striking out the side, the Robert at bat, the drop ball in center, everything that happened, the misplay in center, everything that happened with O'Neal Cruz screwing Paul Skeens. Yes, exactly, Jeff. Like that's all that stuff materialized into one of the wildest first innings in opening day history. I mean, think about it. You think about opening day, we have a 5-2 game. It was historic because no previous Cy Young winner has been chased in the first inning ever on opening day. One of those random ticky-tack stats that is kind of cool. And, the place was buzzing, the place was electric, and it was kind of the new feel Mets of, look, we have a deep lineup. You had 2, another fun fact of opening day was you had 2 different Francisco Lindor walk-up songs in the first inning. You had the debut of Stand By Me after he had My Girl all in the first inning. So, it was like a mass exodus after the first inning. It's like, all right, I saw every new guy hit. I saw 5-2. Now, it's gone for 4 innings to see, see everyone and see all your friends in the stadium, and it becomes a social event. But that first inning, it was like you got it out of the way. It's like, wow, what a start, huh?
Yeah, it would have to suck for all the people that couldn't get in. And I saw your short on trying to get parking and trying to get into Citi Field. Feel bad for all those. I think Evan Roberts said he missed the first inning trying to get there. So I know a lot of people had trouble getting into Citi Field, whether it was trying to find parking or what, make that to opening day or them building what they're building right now.
And
So
on
I
that
know it's
note,
crazy.
like everyone's like, take the train. Not 40,000 people cannot take the train. I understand it. We're New Yorkers. Like I was coming from South Jersey. I had to connect. I got the VIP lot, so I avoided some of the traffic. But otherwise, if you had a normal lot or if you didn't have a pass, you were screwed. So you can't expect 40,000 people to take a train. And I heard LIRR was a mess. So everyone has commented on my video like, you should have just took the train. There's people who are handicapped. There's people coming from different states. Even if you do drive to a station, you have to get parking at that station, which is not always easy. So you got to be realistic when you comment that it's physically impossible for 42,000 people to do a train as a means of transportation. And for those people that paid already for a parking pass, it should not have been that difficult. I was told there were people with prepaid passes that missed the game entirely. They couldn't even get a spot, and it was 2:30, and they just drove back home. That's unacceptable. And I heard it changed yesterday. I think it changed today. Now, it was half the fans yesterday, so that played a factor. I heard it was a little bit more organized. But, man, if weekend games are going to be like that, they're going to have to fix something because there are people that were begging for refunds, and that can't happen. So I just wanted to inform people what I heard on the park. I didn't think it was going to blow up like it did, but, I heard some of the barricades were removed under the highway, which we've all parked there at some point in our lives to avoid paying. I've heard mixed things. There were, homeless people living in there a month ago, people, dealing car parts out of there. I've heard some of it's barricaded, some of it's not. Either way, you got to get there 4 hours early to park in a free spot. You're going to have to pay wherever you go. I heard getting out of that mall garage took 3 hours after the game for people. So definitely take the train, but you should still be able to drive. And there are people who need to drive. So get that in your head. Not 40,000 people can take a train.
Yeah, usually I like to park in the marina. I feel like that's an easy out onto the highway so I could get home. But, I also heard that they're doing shuttle buses now. But even that, like you said, like how many people are going to be taking the shuttle buses because they can't park now?
I also was told, though there's only one, and each location has one. They leave 2.5 hours before the game, so not everyone can make that. Especially if it's a weekday night game, you get there 4:40. People got work till 5, and it doesn't leave till 30 minutes after. Which I'll stay the whole game. I don't care. But there's people, whether they got an appointment, they got a dinner, who can't stay until 30 minutes after the game. So they got to wait until 30 minutes after to leave. Plus, you need those in advance, and they do sell out. These buses it's not unlimited shuttle buses. And again, you still got to find a spot at that mall or whatever. And, going to Bay Plaza or going to Walt Whitman or Roosevelt Field or Paramus or Jersey City isn't always the most convenient for people either. So I think the Mets are smart for doing that. But I also heard getting the shuttle there, they're still sitting in traffic anyway. So while it's convenient and it's $9 round trip, you're still sitting in the same traffic that the other people are sitting in.
If anyone knows about like the traffic and all the problems of parking at Citi Field, I mean, if you haven't been to a game during a playoff push, a crazy night in September with the U.S. Open going on, I mean, like nothing was crazier than that. I'm pretty sure it's going to get times 10 now when that returns in September. But sticking with the opening day theme and the good that happened out of it, you got to talk about Carson Benj. And his home run, that his first hit being a home run, a night, I think it was off the lefty too, if I remember. And he got 2 walks, stole a base. Nice little introduction to Carson Benj and seeing him on opening day and what he could do. We've seen other Mets players that they all like to get their first hits via the home run, whether it's Brett Baty, Francisco Alvarez. What are your thoughts getting to see Carson Benj now live and in person as a rookie for this Mets team?
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. And it's kind of funny because up till that point, he wasn't making any contact whatsoever. He had a walk, but he wasn't even making contact. So the pitch he makes contact on goes out of the park. And I thought there were some cool layers to it. First off, him jumping after he rounded first, that youth exuberance that this roster, I think, needs. You have a lot of veterans, but you have some youth. And he's obviously the youngest of the youth. And I thought that was cool to see him jump around first. I thought the handshakes already with Soto was kind of cool. There's clearly a bond there. And
Mm-hmm.
if you watch Inside the Dime in the last, good series the Mets have been doing on YouTube, they, showed that. They showed how Benj was picking Soto's brain in spring training and really developing a bond with him. And if Soto's doing a handshake with you, he has respect for you. He clearly sees something in this kid that he can be a star. The rest of the weekend, he was so, was definitely late on some fastballs, had a lot of swing and misses. That's going to come. And people got to remember it's cold. The wind, it's impossible sometimes to pick up these pitches. I think they should always limit April home games in New York just because it's so cold. Mets obviously going to St. Louis and then San Francisco, so some West Coast games get a little bit better weather. Not that it's going to be that much warmer there, but I think people got to remember that plays a factor, especially here with the pitching as well. It's hard to see the ball. The ball's all over. Listen, I played pickleball today. Not that I can relate, but that ball was all over the place. I couldn't see. I was whiffing like the Mets lineup 16 times today on the pickleball court. So, it's not the easiest to hit the ball, and I hate to make excuses for guys making $40 million, but that did play a factor. But yeah, I thought Benj looked solid. I'm glad he got his first stolen base as well. That's something he's got to, play a factor. Luis Roberts tried to steal today, got thrown out, but I love aggressiveness. I love small ball. I love stealing bases. So the steal, 2 walks, the homer, it was a nice thing to see. And he got his curtain call as well. Nothing like an opening day curtain call. That's one of my favorite things is a curtain call in baseball.
Even though he struggled the last 2 games of the series, we have to remember he's a rookie. This is going to happen. You can't, if he struggles and goes now like 1 for, 30, you can't have him being sent down and the back and forth and all that stuff. I mean, everyone wanted him up here. He earned his spot in spring training. So it's time to go with him. And the good thing about it is that the pressure, there may be pressure, but it's not going to be like him being the savior of the team, right? I mentioned this on the show last week. He is batting 8th, 9th, and he's going to be able to play his game out there in right field. So I think he'll be able to have time to get himself into the shape he wants to by the time we get to the middle of the season. You mentioned it's cold outside too, so that has a factor. And you talk about the cold out there. Freddie Peralta, I put him in the good category as well. I know he gave up 4 earned runs. He gave up 2 home runs to the new Met killer, Brandon Lau. I mean, he had some stellar weekend for Pittsburgh. But 5 innings pitched. He gave up 6 hits. He even had 7 strikeouts. I think a big thing for me was after he gave up that 2-run home run, he immediately struck out the next 3 the batters. And I think that worked to his favor. He pitched well. I know we want to see these guys go, 6, 7 innings. But on opening day, when it's not the greatest of weather and the wind's swirling around, I think it was a decent performance for Freddie Peralta to keep the Mets going.
Yeah, I think the bounce back striking out the side was big for me because that could have quickly got out of hand early in the first inning. And yeah, outside the Brandon Lau swings, he wasn't bad at all. Strikeout stuff was there. I'm not worried in the slightest about Freddie Peralta. Interesting, his first 2 starts are day games. Wednesday he'll start. It's another day game in St. Louis. So I'm looking forward to seeing him at night sometimes. Sometimes, you like that prime time under the light performance from your ace. But I think he was solid. I think he'll get better. And listen, this is why you don't give a guy, everyone wanted to get the extension and all the story, them trying to make a story out of the extension and him saying no comment. You don't give a guy an extension before he touches the Citi Field mound. Like, they'll get something done if they get something done. Stearns loves him. The Mets love him. They love his personality. But you don't give a guy extent. Lindor, I know that was like a rare case that happened. He's, a one of a kind talent. You just don't give an extension before he pitches. So I think Peralta is going to be just fine.
I like Rosie K's comment in here. Freddie's clearly a positive force on that team. That's worth quite a bit too. I totally agree with that. We've heard stuff that he's done in Milwaukee where there's like having like barbecues with the pitching staff and doing stuff. I assume that he will lead this staff the best way that he could, and they will have a nice camaraderie together once the season continues on. It was just nice to see finally kind of like a leader of the staff on the team, which we didn't really have last year. 2024 didn't really have it either. So it's nice to see Freddie Peralta kind of be that guy. And like you don't want to give a contract, especially to a pitcher. I mean, haven't we learned already these things. You shouldn't be giving out this type of money to starting pitcher. You got to know if you have the right guy in hand, and we're going to see if that's Freddie Peralta. And the Mets have guys coming up, right? The Jonah Tongs, Jack Wenigers. Maybe they're holding off to see how these guys play as well. So, Freddie Peralta, let him do his play his game. Also, like, he doesn't have Scott Boras as his agent, and it's not like the Mets can't work an extension mid-season with him. They said that they were open to talks there, and I fully agree that that's something. If they want him, they'll get him.
Yeah, and he was the star. He was the darling of Inside the Diamond, like you mentioned, and the personality, and the bet with Jonah Tong. Poor Jonah Tong, like 10% of his salary went to that Starbucks coffee he had to get Freddie Peralta. I mean, Jonah Tong is not cashing out that much. Freddie's around $8 million. Jonah Tong's at like what, 100,000? He's not getting that guaranteed money right now because he's in the minor leagues, but. Obviously Freddie will make it up for him, but yeah, organizing the barbecues and organizing the mini golf and the different things that they do, it's part of building that culture that this team just did not have at all last year. And in my opinion, the last couple of years, it's been a problem in that clubhouse that not all the stuff has gotten out. Some of it got out, but some of it didn't. And that's what they're trying to fix. And, that's part of what you're going to pay him for, is to not just pitch great every 5 days, but also be that voice in the clubhouse and be that smile. I think that's important. I know that might sound cliche and corny, but I think it's important. And, Freddie Peralta, the key is that the knock on him last year was he did not, go enough innings. He would be pulled after 5 innings a lot, which was the Mets problem last year with their starting pitching. So I think the key for him is, can he give the Mets 6, 7, even at sometimes 8 inning outings to save this bullpen? Because what we saw today was a microcosm of the team not having a day off, in the next week, and relievers going nonstop every day. And they're going to need starting pitching to avoid that. And it starts up top with Freddie. We know McLean will give them their 6, their 7, but can Freddie Peralta give 6 or 7? Because last year had a great year, but didn't go deep into games. And that's going to be key for him moving forward.
I will say this. I don't expect any starting pitcher on this Mets staff to go past 5 or 6 innings unless they're like 50, 60 pitches in. I mean, I always felt like they were always doing this slow build of trying to get these starting. And a lot of times things changes, injuries happen, all that stuff. But I've never felt that this team in the months of April and May, that they give the starting pitchers 5, 6. I mean, David Peterson was the only one that got that complete game. And then we move on to the rest of the season, and he was abysmal. So I don't see them doing that this early into the season unless the pitch count is favorable or the ups and downs.
Yeah, and listen, if Mitch Keller went 77 pitches and they pulled him and the Mets caught a huge break, that stuff will, I have no hair left to pull out of my head. I got hair on my face. I don't know where I'm going to pull the hair from. I will pull my hair out if the Mets continue to do that. The up-down thing was what made me hate Luis Rojas. I joked on, I think I was doing Amazing But True at the time with Nelson Figueroa, and I would bang my head up and down every time he said up, down. Just that terminology alone pisses
Mendoza
me the
says
hell
it too.
off. Yeah,
Mendoza
and I
says
hate it. It's a very analytical, technical approach, and I'm not in love with analytics. I guess, 35 now. I guess I'm old school. But I'm old school. I don't like that talk, and that's part of why Devin Williams didn't pitch today. He warmed up on Thursday, with the day off, so he couldn't go 3 days in a row because he warmed up Thursday. Give me a freaking break. You got Edwin Diaz just pitched back-to-back games for the Dodgers. He got back-to-back Temu trumpet performances, but we can't, have any reliever besides Dickie Lovelady go more than, go back-to-back days. It's utterly ridiculous. And I know it's March, and people got to understand part of this overreacting that we have is due to the emotions of the season being back. Give it 3 to 4 weeks. There, Peter saying the overreacting started. It's the emotions of the season being back. You have to understand we are human. I'm going to wake up tomorrow. It's going to be a new day. I might lose a little sleep tonight, but that's why we love the team. And we do content every day. I'm putting out more videos than I ever have lately in this last year, putting out content. So, it's not fake. It's just the real emotion that I'm feeling following the team day in and day out, and the different storylines, from the parking storylines to the team storylines, that you just get emotionally invested. So It's part of the emotions. Are we overreacting? Are we ridiculous? Of course. I think anyone saying fire Stearns, we'll get to Sunday. I'm blabbering on here, but I think
You're good.
people got to realize part of these emotions come from this long off season that we just had.
Yeah. I mean, not only was it a long off season, but we didn't even get to the postseason. To get to the last day of the season to fall apart after everything that happened, somewhat of an epic collapse, another epic collapse. It's disappointing. It's very disappointing. And then you come in and you get the high hopes of opening day, but then games 2 and 3, you're getting revision, right? Like you're seeing what you saw last season just with new faces, and that could be concerning. Now, like you said, it's only 3 games, right? We're still in March. We're still in March, so there's a lot to go. And I have one more good that I want to talk about because he's probably the biggest part of what's been so good, and that's Luis Robert Jr., right? He was my X factor into the offseason for this lineup and what he could bring. We know he's a guy that can hit 30 home runs. We've seen it in 2023, but the injuries have plagued him. Playing in Chicago has plagued him, and that has been a problem. But he has, we talked about the 10-pitch walk off Paul Skeens. He had a couple big hits in game 1. He had the big 3-run home run to end the game in extra innings against the Pirates in game 2. So even in Sunday's game, he had a pretty good game. So to see Luis Robert Jr. get off to the start he's had it, and we're giving him praise now. He could pretty well go back to the same person that he's been. But like you said, the emotions are there. We're playing off of it right now, and it's great to see Luis Robert Jr. come through in the clutch for this team when they need him.
Yeah, I'm curious about the nickname. A lot New York, we like to shorten people's names. We're calling him Lou Bob. Someone, and I don't know if he's been asked it. I'm assuming he has, but I don't think he likes being called Lou Bob. Just like Francisco Lindor does not like being called Frankie. So
La Pantera.
listen, I love La Pantera. I have trouble saying it. La Pantera. The accent I struggle with. I don't say it as cool. There's days I wish I was Spanish of some sort. Obviously, going to the Nelson Figueroa Spanish Academy 4 years, I'm like 2% Puerto Rican, but I still cannot get the accent down. But man, he is so swaggy, so cool. The beard, the swing. I think what was cool about him is the approach. We obviously talk about that long at bat, the walk, 10 pitch, 12 pitch, however many, I think it was a 10 pitch at bat to Skeens where he walked in the first inning that kept that rally going. That's something he didn't do a lot of. His chase rate got better as the years went on, but he struck out a lot. When you're playing around, I don't want to call them bums, but when you're playing around guys who are fringe major leaguers on the Chicago White Sox and you're losing 100 games a year, you start to care less. You're going through the motions. Now you're playing around Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor and Jorge Polanco and Bo Bichette, guys who've been to World Series, guys who consistently win, and they expect to win. And that's what's different about this Mets team than the years past when they demolished the core is they brought in winners. They brought in guys fresh off winning teams and winning experiences. Freddie Peralta doesn't miss the playoffs. Francisco Lindor, 4 years here, wasn't missing the playoffs. Bichette was a slide at home plate from having a ring on his finger, having a World Series ring on his finger. Jorge Polanco was captain clutch in the postseason for the Seattle Mariners. So when you're surrounded by greatness and winning and professionals and you're New York City, that just common sense tells you that's going to reinvigorate you than when you're playing around minor leaguers and 4A players on the White Sox and losing in front of 7 people in the building every day. It's just different. And I think he, getting off to that start in front of a sellout on Thursday and then the walk-off in 30-degree temperatures, obviously it was half the building was empty, was really cool to win the fans over. And, I think I'd like to see him get better jumps. I want to see the guy steal every time he's on base. So I'm not too discouraged that he got thrown out today. I thought he got a terrible jump, and it was also a great throw by Davis. I'd like to see him steal 30 bags. I want to see him potentially be that 30-30 guy. And the other encouraging thing is that home run was like a half swing. Like it almost wasn't even a full swing, which shows you his potential. And in that weather that we talked about, how hard it is to get it through the wind and get it over the wall, that's cool. And I think he's calm, cool, collected. He's not too over the top. He's pretty even keel. But what excites me is his ability to not chase like he used to and let pitches on that outside corner go. Because some of those Skeens pitches were close, and he let him go and they were outside. That was a good eye. And then guys not running on him. I think he didn't make any dazzling plays this weekend, but he made good enough plays, and that's going to be big for him. Now he'll get a day off tomorrow. After 3 games, they're going to rest him. We'll see if they move Bench to center and Beatty to right, or if Tyrone Taylor gets a start. I mean, poor Tyrone Taylor is not seeing the field outside of a pinch running appearance. So we'll see if they give Taylor a chance on Monday, which doesn't really excite much people offensively. But I think the key is keeping him healthy, getting him on the field, and he surely looks reinvigorated. And that's exciting because we know they gave up Luis Angel Acuna, who was not going to get a spot on the roster, but that was it. The other guy no one had heard of on the, Joe DeMayo didn't hear the other guy, and Joe DeMayo studies prospects. I guarantee you Joe DeMayo had to look up the guy that they traded. Sorry, Joe, we love you, but there's no way you had analyzed Graham Pauley's numbers or whoever the hell the other guy was for Luis Robert. I'm sorry.
Yeah, giving up Luis Angel Acuna, I mean, they were going to have to give up someone. There was no spot for him, like you mentioned. I didn't hate the trade. I thought it was a solid trade to get a professional bat, a guy who plays good defense and has all the potential in the world, and he doesn't have to be the key cog of this lineup. He's surrounded by good pieces around him that will protect him in the lineup. And like you said, finally we'll have some fans in the stands. Now, obviously, on Saturday, it got flushed out a little bit because the weather was so cold outside of opening day. But seeing Luis Robert Jr. get his kind of first moment for the New York Mets, and that being that game-winning home run was awesome to see. Now, before we get to the bad here, some honorable mentions for good. The starting pitching for the Mets has been solid, even outside of Freddie Peralta. You look at what David Peterson was able to do on Saturday. He pitched well, got into some trouble, but got out of trouble, which was most important, and kept the Mets in there to have the opportunity to win the game. And then you look at Nolan McLean, another one who kind of struggled in the beginning of the game with his control, was able to get through 5. And had 8 strikeouts. So very important start for Nolan McLean, especially after coming off of the WBC, pitching pretty well there as well. So what were your thoughts real quick on David Peterson, what you saw from him, as well as Nolan McLean? I thought that the pitching, even the bullpen, I thought that the pitching for the most part was really good.
Yeah, I was impressed by Peterson's ability to get out of those jams that he put himself in. Again, you'd like him to go deeper, but again, cold weather, man. That Saturday, a couple of my friends who went to the game left early, and I would be fuming if I left early and missed a walk-off, but I get it. It was that cold. So, McLean, I think early on struggled with command. Again, the command is going to be the key. Again, it's getting the grip on the ball. It's not easy in this weather. So today was a little bit chilly as well, not as bad. But I thought the strikeout stuff was great. I mean, that off speed was filthy. 8 strikeouts. That's what you want to see from Nolan McLean. There's a reason his line is always around 6.5, 7.5, because he is a guy that has the ability on any given day to strike out 12 guys. And when his stuff is really on, that off speed is really on, he has that ability. So I thought the starting pitching was solid. Bullpen was not terrible. The lineup did not come up, in situational spots, but encouraging starting pitching. I'm very intrigued next couple days here to see Clay Holmes. And very much the most I'm intrigued is to see Kodai Senga on Tuesday. And what Kodai Senga do we get? Is he healthy? The velocity was there, but what kind of Senga do we get? And can they keep him on the mound? Because he could really be an X factor to this team. We just saw 3 good starts. It is the Pirates, and I understand, but the Pirates offense is a little bit better this year. They had some good offseason moves. That isn't a bum lineup. Like, they got some professional hitters in that lineup, and the Mets did a pretty good job against them.
Yeah, Ryan O'Hearn, Brandon Lau, he gets booed a lot, and rightfully so. Marcell Ozuna, I'm sure that he's not going to stink the entire season. I'm pretty sure at some point he will come back to haunt the Mets, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be in Pittsburgh, which is a house of horrors enough for the New York Mets. One more pitcher.
By the way, that was another reason I wanted the sweep today, because of what they did to us on the weekend, that Eric Chavez should have been fired in June.
Yeah.
When we got swept by the Pirates. That's why I wanted that sweep even more, because you might say it's the bum Pirates, but the amount of times in that house of horrors you talk about that they've swept us or beat us or had a loss where that's the reason I'm bald, is because Mets losses in Pittsburgh. That's the reason. That's why I wanted the sweep today. I had a Swiffer ready. The broom was in the garage. I had the Swiffer. That's what made me extra mad, because the damn house of horrors of Pittsburgh we always lose in.
That you add that to Atlanta and Colorado and Miami, and those are the teams that just give us the biggest troubles. And hopefully, that could change this year. One more pitcher I forgot to mention was Tobias Myers. He pitched 3 innings out of relief on opening day. Only gave up 1 hit, which was a home run. I think that was the other home run to Brandon Lau, if I'm correct, and then 1 strikeout. So he pitched well, and it was good to see him come out of relief. He's going to probably be one of the long men out of the bullpen for the Mets.
Is he on the roster? Where was he today? I didn't see him. I mean, that 3-day rest is not enough for these pitchers. We got to coddle them. Let's send him to the Bermuda for a week. He needs a week-long vacation from the 3 innings. He threw like 30 pitches. It's not like the guy threw 80 pitches. I forget the exact number he threw on Thursday, but yeah, he was the other, he's the forgotten piece of that deal. But the reality is that is an incredible piece that they got because he's affordable, under team control, and a Swiss Army knife. Like Tobias Myers is going to make some starts for this team. There's going to be an inevitable injury to the rotation, and he's going to make starts. It just pissed me off a little extra innings that you could not even have him warming up. And I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. I keep wanting to talk about the bad, even though we're 2-1, just because of how mad. But I would have liked to see him again today. But yes, he was big for the Mets Thursday, saved guys, and hopefully he'll do more of that. There's going to be a lot of times where you need him for 3 innings.
It's interesting that we're in this new age of pitching, which, let's be honest, it's not going to change. I was listening to my friend Anthony Gallo on WFAN, and he was talking about you got to get used to baseball being like this now. The pitchers are going to go 5 innings and that's it. Having a complete game is kind of like having a perfect game no-hitter at this point in time, unless you're one of the most elite pitchers in baseball. So these guys are going to go 5 innings. We're going to see a lot more bullpen arms. I'm surprised that there's not been a talks about an expansion of the roster to add, maybe 1 or 2 more bullpen arms with how short the length's been for the starters. And good point by Ethan here is hard to believe guys like Holmes and Senga get us some length to take stress off of the bullpen. I mean, considering Clay Holmes is pretty much a 5-inning pitcher, Kodai Senga needs everything right to go for him to be there. But maybe the fact that those 2 guys are going to start the season off at the back end of the rotation, maybe that's something that will help, and not being, the number 1 and number 2, right? Clay Holmes had to be the ace to start the season last year. Senga had to do the same thing in 2023. So maybe this is a little bit different, but I understand the stress that Ethan's talking about here.
You need your long men to be long men. For example, Sean Manaea, if he's a long man, you cannot pull him today after an inning and a third.
Yep.
When half your bullpen is unavailable, you cannot pull your long man after 1 1/3 innings. You just can't do it. And it's early. I'm not going to, go nuts. But the reality is if the Mets pitching staff is going to last this season, they're going to need some guys to eat innings. You kept certain guys on the roster because their ability to pitch multiple innings. So show me it. Show me that he could pitch 3 innings. Show me he could go 2 2/3. You can't go the 1 2/3 route. So the Mets are going to need that from Manaea, and that was encouraging today. I would say that was a good that we maybe didn't say was Sean Manaea, looking solid. The completely fooled Met killer Brandon Lau with that sweeper, looked filthy. Obviously, the velocity's still not there yet, but if his sweeper looks like that, he's going to fool a lot of hitters. So that was exciting to see from Sean Manaea, but got to get some length out of some of those long men, and got to get some length. We'll see with, I have confidence in Senga, oddly enough. I think the velocity was there. I think he's fresh. I think he's reinvigorated. I think we might see, 6, maybe 7, God forbid, innings from Kodai Senga in St. Louis.
He's my X factor out of the rotation. I had Luis Roberts Jr. for the lineup, but for the rotation, it's Senga, because when he's on, he's been probably the best pitcher the Mets have had over the 3 years here. When he is on, he is really good. He could compete with Nolan McLean and Freddie Peralta as a top rotation piece. So, hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully everything works out right for him, and the Mets figure out how to keep him on the field, and maybe not play Jorge Polanco at first base when he's on the mound. Maybe let that be Brett Beatty. When you mentioned Sean Manaea, his fastballs today at 88, 89 did not reach 90. I know a lot of people are concerned about that, but maybe he needs to be turned into a soft tosser. Maybe he needs to be like the next Jamie Moyer.
Listen, the eephus, the bunt, and the eephus are my two favorite plays in baseball. When El Duque buckled Eric Chavez on the A's, and I was at the game at Shea Stadium, and he threw 56-mile-an-hour eephus, that is one of my favorite sport memories. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's so relatable when a pitcher can throw 56 miles an hour, because that's how fast me and you could probably throw, and he could fool a hitter. Because when you go from a 90 to a 56, now 56 is obviously extreme. We've seen Senga do it a couple times with a 65 or 69-mile-an-hour curveball where he fools guys. It fires you up as a baseball fan who is not a good athlete but can reach that amount on a radar gun, maybe throwing our hardest. On a dunk tank, you got like Frank the Tank on the dunk tank in center field. They used to do that at Citi Field. They had the dunk tank. Then it became a pillow they would fall in. Now it's just that stupid Ford truck that doesn't do anything. That's just a sponsored thing. Bring back the dunk tank, by the way, with the speedometer. Mets, I got to talk to my people there and see if we can make that happen. They don't even
have it out at the block party?
They don't have a dunk tank. No. Block party is another promotional thing. Buy this, get a free mini cup of Coke Zero thing, and just bring back a dunk tank. How about this summer how about this? I'll sit in the dunk tank. You guys could dunk me in the dunk tank. I'll offer my services if we bring it back. I almost forgot what we were talking about. We were talking about ephysis and curveballs. It's the ADHD kicking in. But yeah, I mean, listen, they need to make him a soft tosser. You might be right. And I think with that sweeper, I mean, Brandon Lau looked lost on a couple of those pitches. Like some of these hitters are so used to 95 and cheese that when you throw 71 curve, they buckle up. And especially with some of these leg kicks. Look at Bo Bichette's leg kick. That's someone I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. Is like, if you lift that leg that early and then you're throwing 67 miles an hour, it's impossible to hit. It's just impossible because your leg is already coming down. You're completely off balance. That is just almost impossible to hit. So I like seeing Manaea soft toss. Maybe he gets another couple miles an hour. Again, it's April. The grip's not there. I think once the warm weather, you see fastballs go faster. You see home runs go further. So I expect that to come with time. But again, let Manaea cook. I would rather see the Mets lose with Sean Manaea and his $25 million on the hill than the Mets lose with Dickie freaking Lovelady on the hill.
We're going to get to him shortly. A shout out to Jake Brown here, host of Mets Daily on YouTube. Follow him at Jake Brown Live. And and at Mets Daily Show. Make sure I'll have all that information in the contents of this show in the description, so you can check it out there. Shout out to the chat. Maureen saying analytics. I think I agree with you. I think a lot of people agree with you on analytics. Shout out to Michael King in the chat, Peter, Ethan, Shea Parking Lot, Rosie K, Pan Trice also joining us. So appreciate you here. Let's get into the bad here. And I want to start off with the Mets offense the last 2 days, because what we saw in the first game is not what we saw these last 2 days. And I know they won the second game, but they left a lot of men on base. If I pull up my notes here, 3 for 14 on Saturday with runners in scoring position, 9 left on base. It was a struggle. It was like we were back in 2025 all over again.
Yeah, I mean, especially Saturday and extra innings before the walk-off, the inning before. I mean, and obviously today with what happened, it felt like 2025 Met moments. That's why the Robert homer was so cool, because you were like, it's a new season, here we go. And then today they reverted back to their old ways again. Again, I think with time this will come around. I don't want to go nuts about it. 3 games into the season, I think they're going to get their groove. Again, it's just like last year. There were times guys were slumping and other guys weren't. I think Bichette is in an early season slump. I think it was a good sign to see Lindor hit today. I think we worried about him because the hamate bone and the injury. Is he going to be right? And he nearly hit one out of the park, and he turned into his first triple since 2024. How about that? He didn't have a triple at all last year.
Yeah, missed it.
Yeah, just missed it. I think, again, a little wind the other way. I think that's probably out of the park. Most parks, I think that's probably gone in better weather. So I hate to keep talking about the weather and stuff, but that will play a factor when it's less cold out. It's just how it is. You see lower scoring games. in baseball in April. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can guarantee you there's less runs scored in April than there are over the summer. That's just how the cookie crumbles. So I'm not terribly worried. I think getting on the road here, I think will actually be good for them. Listen, the Cardinals are a rebuilding team. This is a team you should beat up on. I expect the Mets at least to win 2 out of 3 here against the Cardinals. Giants obviously had a brutal first series. They were one of my wild card picks, so we'll see if they could get it going against the Mets. But 2 winnable series. Like, I think you could very easily win 2 out of 3 or sweep the Cardinals and either split or win 3 out of 4 against the San Francisco Giants. So it's okay, but obviously you would like the approach to be better. I thought the approach Thursday looked great. I wish they could have carried that over. Guys were walking station to station. Polanco's infield single. You'd like to see a little bit more of that. You felt some weird, like Juan Soto striking out a ball that almost hit him in his head. That's once in a blue moon thing. Like, that may never happen again in his 15 years with the Mets. You might not see that moment ever happen again. What was it? Brett Beatty struck out on a ball that hit him. I mean,
yeah,
that happens like twice a year in a baseball season. So weird, funky things that I don't see happening a lot happen this weekend. And that's why you play 162. And that's baseball, Susan.
Yeah, I think that offense will heat up. I will say this because I want to attach it to the offense. This third game of the series where, the Mets had an opportunity to at least tie the game in the bottom of the 10th. The Lindor walks, you got 2 on, and then Juan Soto hits that, what should have been a 2-run double or just a 1-run double, where Francisco Lindor ends up being thrown out at home. The third base coach here, and Tim, I don't know if it's Leaper or Lepper, but he sent Francisco Lindor, and I think he's in a rock and hard spot anyway, right? Like, he sends him and he gets out, he's going to get killed for that. He doesn't send him and they still lose the game. And then that's talked about him not being sent. What are your thoughts on the send there? Because the offense was struggling to score runs anyway, but the fact that it could have been second and third with no outs, I think was more enticing. It's just, interesting to see how that whole situation played out.
Yeah, I believe it's Tim Leaper.
Leaper.
Baseball Reference has it as Leaper, and leave it to Leaper to get leave it to Beaver, leave it to Leaper to make me mad today. I mean, I'm more mad that Dickie Lovelady stayed in after the 2 walks. He gave the single 2 walks. That pissed me off a little bit more, but it's pretty close. Like, we're talking about 60-40, 55-45. It's a god-awful send. There's no other way to look at it. In the moment, I'm thinking to myself, Lindor could be able to score, but a good. It didn't even take a perfect throw to the cutoff man because it bounced to the cutoff man, and then the throw home was a little bit offline. So it was 2 imperfect throws. It was executed nicely, but it wasn't perfect. 2 imperfect throws, and he was still out by 8 miles. That's what tells you what a bad send is when 2 imperfect plays and he's still out by a mile. That just can't happen. So now with Bo Bichette, who knows what would have happened there? The infield's going to be in. It's second and third, no outs. That ground ball, maybe he gets out on home anyway if they're setting him, or he goes back, and then Polanco, it's a sac fly. And at the very least, we have to watch another inning of Dickie Lovelady because no one else is warming. I would have rather that than the game end there. And I think that's what it comes down to is, like, you need to live to see another day. And the ball was not bobbled out there. Tim Leaper should have seen, hey, okay, he got it in. Let me be safe here. Maybe he watched tape of the Tyrone Taylor no send that I did a whole Jake Boy breakdown of last year against Cleveland. Remember that one where, they threw it in, Carlos Santana bobbled it, and Tyrone Taylor would have scored by a mile. Maybe he was watching that tape last night. I don't know. But there was no reason to set him, man. I mean, it's just Lindor is fast, and I get why he did it in some ways, but you got to keep your team in the game. Second and third with no out, like, maybe it's because the day before he saw, the runners second and third, no out, and they didn't score, and he had, he had memories of yesterday and said, hey, I don't want this situation to happen again. But you have to have faith, and you had the heart of the order up. I know Bichette has looked terrible the first 3 games, but you had Bichette, Polanco, and the hero. You would have had Robert come up. Like, you had 3 really good hitters on a good day coming up, needing, with nobody out, needing a ground ball or 2 sack flies to win the game. It's just a terrible send.
Yeah, that it's with this team not scoring, it's just that I guess that Lieber felt, like you said, that maybe he had to send them there. But, and of course, at the end, the very last at bat, Polanco not only just drives it, but drives it right to the wall. Like that's where it had to end. Like it couldn't have been like a ground out or something.
A little bit more wind, and I think that's gone. I'm just keep thinking about the wind because I played pickleball today, and the wind again. I hate to mention pickleball again, but I'm addicted to pickleball. When you're in suburban New Jersey and you're unemployed, pickleball becomes your life. I'll let you know. I'm hooked on the Mets and I'm hooked on pickleball. The wind was all over, and Jersey's different, but like a little wind the other way, and I think that balls out. But what a tease that was, because you're thinking to yourself, and I was on TikTok Live during that. I've been doing a lot of TikTok Live, pre-games, post-games. I was on live watching that with the people. We had about 100, 120 people in there like reacting with us, and Polanco hits that to the wall, and you're thinking, holy crap. Can Luis Robert and Jorge Polanco, our new 4 and 5 hitters, hit back-to-back homers on back-to-back days? If that happened, you would have purchased World Series tickets. You would have been like, holy crap, this team is magical. And it was just inches short. And then he looked at the guy in the Cadillac Club and said, F you. It sounded like that guy was heckling him all game. And he said to him, hey, F you, we won the game.
If it was Brandon Lau, it would have been out.
Yeah, of course. That killer. Chipper Jones.
I have to bring this up in the bad before we get to the ugly, because Shea Parkin a lot. Positive Jeff, we like to call him, says, make sure the 999 challenge is in the bad. He also says how disappointing it was. Ripped hot dogs, micro machines, beer glasses from 120-ounce can. Did you on opening day hit up the 999 challenge, or will you at all?
I mean, I'm bougie. I eat lobster rolls and steak sandwiches. I don't do 9 hot dogs. I go to way too many Met games to, have I save a hot dog for a barbecue, and I have 2 max. Any more than that, and you're on the toilet all day. Was that what they were doing? Was it 124-ounce can and 9 glasses?
Yes.
That is an abomination.
Yeah, I think you can choose from either Coors Light or Heineken. I think those were the 2 choices.
So you could choose between piss and pisser. I like that. All the piss. You're drinking 9 glasses of piss. Enjoy that. Listen, that's ridiculous. And it's $60. I mean, $60 for one 24-hour glass and 9, like, not even full hot dogs, like half hot dogs. It's ridiculous. I Lady and the Tramp, the banana dog with Joey Chestnut, the champion of hot dog eating last summer. And half of a banana dog was enough for me. So I could not do, I've crushed a Delta Club buffet. I mean, you've seen the feast I've had at Citi Field, and I made sure to use the mahogany bathroom afterwards. But like 9 hot dogs, it's just for that price, just not. I mean, you can get, multiple beers and a hot dog for cheaper than that, I would think, because beer's like 18. You could get probably 2 hot dogs and 2 24-ounce beers for cheaper. It's really just a social media thing. And I know my old employer, they did a video with it with, someone that I know from there. So it's very much let's get this viral and people are going to buy it. It's all going to be influencers that do it. I'm not going to be that influencer that do it. Give me the 9 lobster rolls in 9 innings, and you might have me intrigued. 9 surf sides, 9 lobster rolls, 9 innings. I think I could pull it off.
And I think all they do is cut the hot dog in half. So to make it to the
it's
9,
a sham. It's just a social media sham is what that is. So yes, I agree. Whoever made that comment, it deserves in the ugly category.
Ladies and gents, if you're going to Citi Field, we promise you there is good food there. You do not have to do the 999 challenge.
I mean, it's voted #1 food in baseball 4 years in a row. So especially if you only go to a handful of games. Now, I get it. Money plays a factor. More food's more expensive. The food there's expensive. I understand. And I understand the economy we're in sucks and everything's expensive. I understand that. But if you're going to a couple games a year, do not eat a hot dog. I'm sorry. I had the roast pork was a new sandwich on Thursday. And I'll post probably tomorrow. I'll post the food review on that. That was fantastic. In right field, you have Adam Richman's new burger. Hall of Fame burger is great. Never go on with the steak sandwich. The kimchi Reuben is a new sandwich this year they have. You have the French dip station is a really good spot. You can get Mookie Wilson's pulled chicken. You know me, I go hours on Citi Field food, but just do better. Do better than a hot dog at the ball game.
You need to be at the What's New every year.
I know.
I was there last year. I didn't get to go this year, but that to try out all the food.
I went a couple of years ago. I live far now. I'm job hunting. If I make it back to New York, which would be great, and I'm back living there, I will go next year. But I know I went. I did them with Figgy a couple of years ago. We did them. It's like Christmas there. So yes, 9 Surfsides equals a mortgage payment on a Thursday. Well, listen, you got to know the right people. If you know the right people, you can maybe get 9 Surfsides for the price of 1. If you know the right people.
Jake knows his way around Citi Field. Well, I've seen him around Citi Field walking around. He knows his way around there, so he's good. Let's get to the ugly here, and let's start off with Bo Bichette. Golden Sombrero today in the series, batted 071, had a 138 OPS, only had the 1 RBI on the sac fly, 8 strikeouts. Man, I know I'm not concerned about him. I'll ask you if you're concerned. I'm pretty sure you're not either. We know he's a professional at bat. It's early in the season. It's 3 games. Not going to go crazy over it. But, man, this weekend sucked for Bo Bichette. And, at least he handled the post-game presser when they asked him about the boos. He said, if anything, I thought it took too long for them to start booing me. He goes, I get it. I thought my bats were terrible too. So at least he handled that. He knows. And he said he wanted to be up there in the big moments and try to get the big hits. So he's going to come through. I have no doubt that he will.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I almost am mad. I think it was the right thing to say 100%. I'm almost mad he said it because now the boos are going to come louder. Now, luckily, they're going on the road. The pressure is off him. But, guys, we've been through Jason Bay. We've been through our biggest offseason addition being 40-year-old Adrian Gonzalez and Rick Porcello. Can we relax on 3 games? And, by the way, they won 2 of them. If they got swept, that's a different story. But Bo Bichette's career track record tells you he'll be great. And if he's not, you want to boo him in 3 weeks because he's hitting 082, fine. But 3 games into a guy's new tenure is so utterly ridiculous. And then those people will say, I paid for the ticket. I have every right to boo. Sure, you have every right to boo, but not a guy that just got here. And by the way, who drove in the first run of the season? Bo Bichette, a nice sac fly with 2 outs. So it's not like he did nothing. He also made a nice play in the field today at third base. But we're just nitpicking. He's making $42 million. He's got to be perfect. No player is perfect. I think going on the road, facing some bum St. Louis pitching, some couple meatballs down the middle in St. Louis, he can hit out of the park, get his swagger back. But this isn't a rookie. This is a guy. His track record shows that he's probably going to end up hitting 300, and he's probably going to have a ton of big hits. So those fans who booed him, you're phonies, you're fake, you're losers. And I don't care what your argument is, you're wrong on this. You have a right to boo players, but not a guy 3 games into a season when you won 2 out of 3. So I'm not really worried yet. I think he realizes he's got to fix it up. And this is what coaching is. The Mets coaching has to realize, what did he do wrong and how can we fix this? This is what coaches are paid to do, is to correct these issues. And Eric Chavez isn't here anymore, which is a good thing. It's addition by subtraction that loser is posting to his Instagram story and doesn't have a job because he was a douche. So, sorry, that might have been mean, but it's just
Tell
true.
us how you really feel.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that guy's just the ultimate loser. So I think the coaching staff here got to get him right, and I'm confident Bo Bichette will turn this around. And I'd like to see him. He deactivated his Instagram. Wow, I'd like to see him, and it makes sense. I mean, he was, he went private. Now he was probably getting some messages, but. I'd like to see him have a good road trip. And then I'd like to come, I know it's corny and cliche, but I'd like a nice week. And then him to return home when we face Arizona and fans to give him a standing O. You did it for Francisco Lindor. I think it's right that you show Bo some love because the Phillies fans have driven players out of town with booing. And I'm sure we have too. Yankee fans at one point booed Aaron Judge on opening day. Don't be that fan that makes other fans hate you because you're never going to win in the end.
Let's not forget, he's playing for a contract as well. I know he signed for 3 years, but those are really 1-year deal each. He can leave at the end of the season. So I'm pretty sure he's going to want to play to his best ability and, get another bigger, higher contract like the one the Phillies had offered him before he signed with the Mets. I think he'll be fine offensively. Defensively, which I think he'll also be kind of fine in, kind of like that transition A-Rod made in. But you mentioned the coaching staff. Kai Correa's got a lot of work to do because he has to deal with Jorge Polanco at first base and Bo Bichette at third. And, you kind of want, if you have a guy like Bo Bichette, learning this new position, I feel like you really want a first baseman that can, scoop and make all those moves. And I don't know, man. I don't really know how long Jorge Polanco is for first base. I made in one of my predictions that we will probably see Brett Beatty as the first baseman as we go along in the season, and probably Jorge Polanco as the DH, especially if, Mark Vientos does not start hitting homers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd rather see Mark Vientos make 0 starts at first base. I think he'll start this week against the lefty when they face Liberatore. I believe that's on Wednesday, so Vientos will get a start. But, shout out to Mark Vientos, came off the bench and got that base hit after having a 1-hit spring. He came up with a big hit on Saturday. But, I think it'll take time. But, again, with the pocket watching and the fans, there was a couple accounts who, were watching every Jorge Polanco mistake, and the people were out with, you should have just brought Pete back. And it's just so infuriating to watch, I was encouraged by Polanco when he did bobble it. He recovered a few times. Remember, opening day and I think Saturday, he had bobbled, but then he made the nice flip. The old first baseman might have flipped that into the 4th row. He might have took out, Huascar Brazoban's head with one of those flips. So I thought that was actually encouraging. It's going to take time, but let's not critique every single moment and 2 games in already vouching for this guy out. I agree that, Brett Beatty's probably going to get some starts at first base, and they'll probably take Polanco off. But early in the season, you got to get him a few. I think 2 out of 3 games each series, Polanco's probably going to be your first baseman, and then they'll rotate, they'll sit him, they'll DH him. But you have options there, and that's the key. You have 3 options if you want to include Vientos in there. If you want to include Jared Young, you have 4 first base options. So the Mets aren't short of guys they could put there if it ends up being a colossal failure. Bo Bichette, I don't like the double clutches he does. I feel like he thinks he has more time than he does.
The David Wright move?
Yeah, it feels like a shortstop thing where he is a shortstop, but the one where he did make the bad throw, he took forever to throw it. I mean, I would say, boom, get rid of it, because I think once you start thinking, and that's where Bo Bichette is thinking a lot, he's in his head defensively, and maybe he's carrying that to the plate. Hopefully going to St. Louis mentally he's a little bit better, not thinking about everything, but I think he's thinking a lot about defense, and it's affecting his offense. So I'm going to be honest. I'd like to see Bichette DH some games. I'd like to see Beatty at third some games. I know you're paying Bichette $42 million, but think about this. You want to get his back going here? Why don't you play Bo Bichette at DH on Monday? Why don't you have him get his mind completely off having a field and keep his mind focused on just being at the plate? And physically, you're going to keep him healthy that way. Remember, Bo Bichette dealing with some injuries the last couple of years, the knee injury last year. I know you're paying him a lot, and I know you're forcing this third base thing, and I think that's fine. But I'd really like to see Bo Bichette DH at least twice a week. You have Brett Beatty as your super utility man for a reason. We know Brett Beatty plays a great third base. Why not ease all of our minds and ease Bo Bichette's mind and just make him hit 4 or 5 times? Because hitting is why you signed him.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, when they talked about run prevention and defense, that they when signing both Polanco and Bo Bichette, that kind of took away Brett Beatty being on the field mostly every day, and we saw him play well at third base. We seen him play second base as well, and he's been hitting, right. I mean, this first 3 games of the series he's hit. He had the big hit against Paul Skeens in game 1. Had a couple hits today. And I'd like to see a little bit more of him playing defense. I think he'll play a little bit more first base as we go, and maybe they will play Bo Bichette. We saw even with Jorge Polanco struggling yesterday, the fact that they then put Brett Beatty into play in game 3, and it helped out defensively. So we'll see how they handle that. We're talking about the ugly of this series, and let's talk about Carlos Mendoza's running of this bullpen, because that was a struggle last season, and it seems to be a problem now, especially with with playing. I don't know what the infatuation with Richard Lovelady is on being on this team. Like I don't get it. Like why did they not give a chance to this Brian Hudson guy who now is where did he go? I can't, did he go back to Chicago? I can't remember where he went. But Brian Hudson was another lefty out of the bullpen that they traded for, and I was hoping that we would see him at some point. So, even and shout out to BJ the Kid, who hit us up with the 299 the 199 super chat, saying, I agreed with Jake. Lovelady 2 times in 3 games is absurd. Not only is that absurd, the fact that they had nobody warming up in the bullpen while he was struggling. Like, we've seen this guy so many times. We know what Richard Lovelady is. Stop it.
Yeah, Brian Hudson, White Sox, 2/3 of an inning already gave a run, so he's
Okay.
keeping up where he left off in the spring. Listen, you can't, if you came into today's game and you told me Devin Williams is unavailable, Brooks Raley's unavailable, and apparently Tobias Myers is unavailable because he was not warming up, you can't manage a game like that. And you're seeing teams around the league, the Pirates, and I know they're the Pirates and they stink. They use the same pitcher all 3 games. They use Dennis Santana, former Met great, all 3 games. And you're telling me because Devin Williams went up down on Thursday and Brooks Raley pitched, Brooks Raley throws 80 miles an hour or something. Like, Brooks Raley had a very easy inning. How is Brooks Raley not available on a back-to-back? He's one of your best relievers. He's got to be. Okay, if he's not, Tobias Myers pitched Thursday. You can't tell me that resting Friday, resting Saturday, he can't give you 1 inning on Sunday. You just can't tell me that. And I know it's early, and I don't want to be the guy to say, because I know everyone's saying it, even, it is true, is you should learn from last year. You missed the playoffs by 1 game, because the real story of last year is you just had a colossal failure in the second half. Yes, you lost by 1 game, but it is kind of true that I don't think you manage March like you do September, but today felt like a punt. That was a, I don't think it's wrong to say that is a punting move. And okay, you start Lovelady, start the inning, fine. I'm pissed off about it. When he gives up the single, you're like, oh boy, here we go. He gets the double play, great. But then he throws 6 straight balls and walks the next 2 hitters. He passed the 3-batter minimum. At that point, you can pull him. Yeah. So why did you not pull him? Oh, because nobody is warming. That's another thing that's happened with Mendoza. Is like, it's almost like he's got a snooze button on. He's got no one ready. I feel like Kevin Hart, the Kevin Hart meme. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. Carlos Mendoza, he wasn't ready. You got to have someone ready. And it had to be Tobias Myers because, process of elimination, if Devin and Raley aren't available, you have 1 arm left. My thought is like, what if the Mets did tie that game? I assume you're going Lovelady another inning. Okay, what if it goes another inning? Are you going Dickie Lovelady for 69 innings in honor of his name? Like, what are you doing at that point? Like, is Dickie Lovelady throwing 5 innings? Is he a starting pitcher now? Dickie Lovelady's a starting pitcher. What is he, Andy Pettit in the Mike Francesa era? It's just ridiculous to me to think that was the plan. And if you're worried about back-to-backs, and the counter argument is, oh, Dickie Lovelady go back-to-back because you're going to DFA to him tomorrow. But to me, that's dumb. You need to put your best pitchers out there. And like I said, if Edwin Diaz, a high-leverage closer, can go back-to-back days for the LA Dodgers, why can't Tobias Myers go once every 3 days? That's all I ask. I would have felt more comfortable if Tobias Myers was in after those 2 walks than, Dave Racanello wasn't even stretching in the bullpen. There was no one even stretching. There was no one going like this. There was no, let me get the arms ready. Stretching. Someone's got to be stretching when Dickie Lovelady walks that first guy. And on top of that, Ant, they had a mound visit. What were they doing during the mound visit? Preparing the post-game meal? I mean, come on with this. Like, I know it's Martin, and I hate to have a heart attack over this, but have somebody warming. That's all I ask. You messed up putting Lovelady in. Make up for it by having a backup arm ready to go in case he implodes. And he imploded.
Anytime Lovelady is in the game, someone should be warming up and being ready. I mean, the guy has an over 5 ERA. Like, why? Someone should always be warming up when Lovelady's on the mound. The thing that drives me nuts is, and you mentioned Edwin Diaz pitching in back-to-back games. I mean, I feel like it's a philosophy thing, right? Because he wouldn't be doing that here. How many times during his tenure with the Mets did we hear them say, well, Edwin Diaz can't do back-to-back games. He can't pitch this many at batters. He can't do like it was like the Kodai Senga thing. Like everything has to work and be aligned for Edwin Diaz to work. And now he goes to the Dodgers, which is a 2-time defending champion, and he's able to pitch 2 games in a row. Like I just don't understand the thought process. Let me get to some of the chat here because Kevin Shaw says Stearns did it again with roster construction, Lovelady, Young, and Garcia being a part of the team. The Vargas says that Mendoza does it again. Why was Lady in again? Why was Devin Williams not available today? Mendoza is a clone of Boone, terrible manager. Look, you know. That's the thing.
And I get it's early in the season, but let me counter that. These guys are fresher than ever. Like if there ever was a time to go to back-to-back, it's on March 29th because they've thrown no innings.
Yeah.
So you want to tell me this in 3 weeks and the Mets had guys go back-to-back? Fine. We're 3 games into the season. And not only are we 3 games in the season, we're 3 games in with an off day mixed between. Like you had an off day. Like I get it's early, but like these guys this is the time you should be able to go back-to-back because they're fresher than ever. And it's not like they're pitching 20 innings in spring. These guys are pitching. Dickie Lovelady pitched 1 inning for the Mets in spring. 1 inning! He pitched 1 or 2 innings and then a couple innings for the Nationals. So I get he's fresher than everybody else. You know why? Because you DFA'd him in between. There was a reason you cut the guy and then you said, oh, we'll take him back. So, it's just – and I know he'll be DFA'd and we won't pull, you won't pull your hair out. I won't pull, my cocoa butter off the top of my head. But, it's still unacceptable for a manager to do this. And maybe it's coming from up top. We don't know. But we saw a lot of this last year. And the more unavailable pitchers become this season, the more unavailable the Mets will be in October. And that's what happened last year. And I'm clearing my schedule for October. Is Brooks Raley going to be available in October? Is Tobias Myers going to be available in October? I sure hope so. And I hope this isn't something we see consistently. And I know part of it is because they have no off days this week, and I totally understand that. And the other logic was we got to save Myers for tomorrow and Tuesday because Senga, and Holmes may not go deep. If that is the case, then Carlos Mendoza, Sean Manaea's got to go more than 29 pitches. If he's not throwing 92, he's not wearing his arm out, you should have saved Weaver for the 10th inning, and you should have had Manaea for the 9th. I much rather would have lost the game with Sean Manaea in the 9th inning than lose the game with Dickie Lovelady in extra innings. I'm sorry.
That's the thing that drives me nuts too. Is like, why are you I understand strategizing for the future. I get that, but win the game at hand. You could be 3-0 right now. You should be 3-0 against the Pirates. I know that they're an up and coming team. They're getting better, but like you're just giving them the opportunity to take this game. And the fact that, like you said, they had an off day in between. Only 3 pitchers pitched game 1. Like they perfectly mapped that one out. And the fact that like your closer's not available, Brooks Raley, your best lefty's not available, but the 2 guys that are most available and have pitched the most this weekend are your 2 worst bullpen relievers in Luis Garcia and Richard Lovelady. I just don't understand it. And then great point by Kevin Chada. You can't tell me Craig Kimbrell is worse than Lovelady. Like, why don't we have like this guy that's going to be probably a Hall of Famer with the most saves? He had an okay spring, but you telling me once we get into game time, Craig Kimbrell can be worse than Richard Lovelady?
By the way, that sounds like a Mike Francesa skit. Craig Kimberly and Dickie Lovelady. Craig Kimberly and Dickie Lovelady met at the bar and they fell in love, and then they had a couple of children together. Craig Kimberly and Dickie Lovelady. I don't do a very good Francesa impression, but yeah, I mean, listen, Craig Kimbrell didn't have a great spring. Would I rather Craig Kimbrell in that game than Dickie Lovelady? 10 times out of 10. And I totally get Dickie Lovelady making it over Brian Hudson. the Mets are going to have to at some point go to those young arms. And that's why at some point we see Dylan Ross, who starts the season on IL and AAA. And the whole we need another lefty. Well, you move Sean Manaea, to the bullpen, and he's your second lefty. So now you're saying you have three lefties. Does a bullpen need three lefties? There's no more one. There's a 3-batter rule. The whole having so many lefties in a bullpen in today's day and age is overrated. It's not a need. 2 is fine, and Manaea is your second. So you have Brooks Raley, who has been tremendous as a Met, like a godsend for this bullpen, and you have Sean Manaea as your second lefty. You don't need another lefty just because you need a lefty when that pitcher is not as good as other pitchers. Yeah. So, it's not like they had a whirlwind of options. A couple of names I think you're going to see at some point is Adbert Alzolay. I think when Adbert Alzolay gets some innings in, I think you're going to see him in this bullpen. You're going to see, obviously, AJ Minter. Please come back. Please. AJ, save us. Obviously, the second AJ's back, Lovelady will be gone. I assume Lovelady's gone before then because we got to wait another month for AJ Minter. But I cannot wait till AJ Minter's back. It looks like late April. We'll see if the Mets rush it a little bit. Yeah, but I doubt they're going to rush anything. But AJ Minter has got to come here because think about it. AJ Minter, Brooks Raley. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the best lefty relievers in the sport. The Mets bullpen becomes incredibly better when AJ Minter is back on this team. But yeah, I agree that, Craig Kimbrell, stay warm. He's staying warm. He's staying in the organization. I think Craig Kimbrell saying to himself, hey, you're going to need me pretty quick because Dickie Lovelady, I was going to say it was about to bust, but that would have been bad.
Look, Mendoza said Lovelady was brought in to face lefties, right? And then here he is on Sunday facing a whole bunch of righties. And I'm thinking to myself, when they brought him in here, I was like, okay, maybe this is the guy you throw in, right? The team's down by 8 runs or something like that. You're just throwing a body in. You need him to take the beating, and he takes the beating. He's in 2 big spots right off the start of the season in extra innings. I cannot believe this.
You put the worst pitcher in when there's a runner already at second. So listen, I give him credit. Saturday, he got out of it. He got very lucky to get out of it, by the way, because that runner should have been sent home. You want to talk about a bad no-send. The ball had like 12 bounces. I think it was Brian Reynolds maybe at third. I forget. Whoever's at third easily would have scored if they sent him. Now, I guess it doesn't make a ton of difference because Robert hit the 3-run homer. You still probably would have won. But he got bailed out by a terrible third base coach. A lot of bad third base coaching this weekend, by the way, because the Pirates would have scored another run off Lovelady. So he only got charged with 1 run. It wasn't earned because the automatic runner is not an earned run. But how do you put your worst reliever in when there's a free runner at second base? Blows my mind. You want to put your strikeout guy in. And I trust Tobias Myers, Raley, or Devin Williams to have a couple strikeouts over Lovelady. He had no command either. That was the weird thing to me is like when he threw 6 straight balls, how was your thought? How did it not trickle in your mind? Get him out because he's going to give up a hit. And he did.
Yeah. You mentioned, I think Dylan Ross on the IL to start. I think Alizé as well is starting the season on the IL. I don't know if that's just to get him in more game shape, but he also, and then today, I saw Ernest Dove post that Ryan Lambert was taken out of his outing a little bit earlier, and I hope it's not injury related. They're saying that he wasn't having control, but that his pitches, the speed of his pitches were fine in the 90s. But I hope that Ryan Lambert is not hurt because the Mets need some bullpen pieces here, and obviously Craig Kimbrell will probably be one of the first ones called up. But the young kids that they've been talking about, it'd be nice to see at some point.
Yeah, maybe the egg prices were too high, and Ryan Lambert couldn't have his 12 morning eggs that he has.
It's expensive being a minor leaguer.
Yes, you gotta like sell knives door to door as your side gig. Some of these guys are salesmen in the offseason, work at Dick's Sporting Goods in the offseason. Yeah, I mean, listen, Dylan Ross is going to be a factor at some point, but really it's AJ Minter. Yeah, I mean, Christian Scott is going to probably come out of the bullpen at some point. Obviously, Christian Scott missing all of last year. Mets have, had a really good spring. If there's no injuries to the rotation, Christian Scott might have to be a reliever. They're going to need the youth to help them. And I think you're seeing this is the weakness of the team. At the trade deadline, and I don't want to talk trade deadline in March, but I do think, people ask me a lot my lives. I don't know why. What do you think we get at the trade deadline? I'm like, hold up. We just started. I think relievers is going to be the main thing the Mets go after because that is their big weakness right now, and they need help in that spot. But I mean, Lovelady's one appearance from getting cut if they don't. And I know maybe that's, I think Luis Garcia is also a DFA candidate at some point. He did not look very good this weekend. So I don't have much faith in him, but Christian Scott needs innings. Christian Scott's going to need 6 to 8 weeks at the very least of innings after a year without baseball. So I think sometime Memorial Day, maybe June, we see Christian Scott here if the Mets need him. Good thing is they have talent. They have Jack Wenninger. They have talent on the horizon. If they got to turn them into relievers for a little bit, so be it. But just enough of these 4A pitchers. And I'll say this. Dickie Lovelady was a guy I wanted the Mets to sign, not because his name was Dickie Lovelady last year, because he was lighting up the minor leagues. He had like a 1.5 ERA. He was putting up good numbers. I said, take a flyer on him. The flyer is passed. He had an 8 ERA last year, and he stunk so far. Like, that flyer is down the riverside. It's over. Like, I was glad they took the flyer. Now send him packing. I'm sure he'll get a nice gig with the White Sox, and he could go pitch in the same bullpen with Brian Hudson. But this is a world championship caliber Mets team that can't be let down. And I sound like Frank the Tank, who's like, we're going to lose 60 games in a row with Dickie Lovelady. But it sure feels like any time he's in the game, and especially a tie game, he blows it. The time to use Dickie Lovelady would have been opening day there when it was 11-5. That would have been a good time. Why didn't, instead of using Tobias Myers, use Dickie Lovelady for 4 innings? That would have been the time to use him. So no more Dickie Lovelady in tight games. Yeah. I mean, no more tight game Dickie Loveladies.
No, absolutely not. And shout out to Kev Chada in here saying 2 years in a row with bad bullpen arms. When is Stearns going to be on the hot seat? I don't think Stearns is going to be ever on the hot seat. I think he's going to finish out his contract. But to your point of the bad bullpen arms, I was fully invested, fully 100% on paper, believing in David Stearns and him bringing in the bullpen. This is who he brought in the bullpen at the trade deadline. Phil Maton, who worked towards the end of the season, but they overworked him. And then by the time the postseason came, he was out of it. Ryan Stanek, who stunk during the regular season, but was good in the postseason. Gregory Soto, Ryan Helsley, Taylor Rogers. Tyler Rogers. Brought those guys in. On paper, sounds like great ads, great additions, but they haven't worked out. I'm a little concerned that David Stearns might not be able to get us some good bullpen pieces. Look, Luis Garcia now. He could probably be okay, but Luis Garcia, Richard Lovelady. I mean, he does sign Devin Williams, but it was at the loss of Edwin Diaz, and he brings in Luke Weaver as well, who could be pretty solid. But I'm a little concerned about the handling of the bullpen from David Stearns and his evaluating of these players.
Yeah, well, again, AJ Minter's health is going to play a part because Minter was a good signing. He just got screwed by the injury last year. That's going to be a telltale sign because if Minter can't stay on the field again, remember, they took a risk with Minter because when the Mets got him, he had that offseason hip surgery. So they went out and got a guy when they signed him that 2-year nice deal that he got, $22 million or whatever it was. They took a guy that was coming off surgery. You were taking a risk with AJ Minter and his health. Great career, by the way, NL East. Always a 2.5 ERA kind of guy, but was coming off a big hip surgery when he signed him. That was a risk. So we have to see AJ Minter healthy because he just hasn't been, because that was his big bullpen signing. That, like, besides obviously Devin Williams, that was his big signing. So let's see what Minter does. Tyler Rogers, we got to be fair. Tyler Rogers was fine. I think he was solid. Yep. Helsley was awful. I mean, obviously you couldn't bring Helsley back. Stanek, they had to bring back. He just imploded. By the way, he blew his first save chance for the Cardinals yesterday.
Up 3,
so
right? Up 3.
I wasn't mad seeing that. It made me feel better that we didn't bring him back. But yeah, this is going to be a big year for him. And you have young pitching, but you have young starters. Like, could they be effective relievers? We don't know yet. You might have to keep Sean Manaea in this bullpen and turn him into that off-speed, like, dynamic bullpen guy. Like I've said on my show, Mets Daily, Tobias Myers, Sean Manaea are just huge Swiss Army knife pieces to this team that early on, and at some point they'll have to start, they have got to be effective relievers at the very least until Minter's back, because they can't rely on Luis Garcia's, the Dickie Loveladies of the world, and Brazamon's been good, but we know who Oscar Brazamon. Every after 3 good appearances, he's due to implode at some point. And I think Brazamon's solid, but he's not this all-world reliever either. So they have some fringe relieving. This is the weakest point of the team. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. This is the weakest link is the New York Mets bullpen.
I had really liked that Brazabon trade. I'm worried that he's going to get overworked again. That's the problem that happened last season, and I'm worried about it here because when he's on, he's on. He had a really good WBC. I was hoping that would carry over. He's had a good couple of outings to start the season, so I have high hopes for him. I just don't want him to be overworked because Mendoza and crew don't know how to handle this bullpen. Before we wrap up the show here, one more note. We found out on opening day, right, probably about a half hour before the game started, that Tommy Pham is returning to the Mets organization. Minor league deal. Jorge Castillo of ESPN posted it, and then Will Sammon at The Athletic with the numbers. With incentive, Tommy Pham's salary with the Mets can reach $3.1 million. He gets $2.25 million if he reaches the majors. Now, his time with the Mets in 2023, pretty good. 268 batting average, 10 homers, 36 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, and a 820 OPS. Do you think we will see Pham at some point? I mean, I was a little thrown back by this signing because we have Tyrone Taylor, and I just don't understand it with the fact that Soto's in left. Roberts got center field nailed down, Carson Bench and right. They have MJ Melendez in the minor leagues as well, and I'm pretty sure Mike Tauchman's going to come back in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm a little surprised they brought in Tommy Pham. I know he has an out if he doesn't make the major leagues, but unless there's an injury, I don't know who he replaces. Jared Young, but then you have no utility infielder.
That's my answer right there is Jared Young. I mean, yeah. I get it, but is Jared Young really utility infield? He's really a first baseman in outfield. It's not like he plays other positions. Keeping Vidal Brujan probably would have been the smarter move because he plays every position on the diamond. At some point, Ronnie Mauricio needs every day at bats. I could see Mauricio being that other infield guy that plays all over the diamond at some point, but he's got to get at bats. But yeah, I could see Tommy Pham getting here. Listen, this is a pure hitter. Like, this is a guy that does hit the baseball, and he goes on stretches where he goes on a heater. Remember, he was a big reason Arizona went on that run was Tommy Pham and what he did for them when the Mets traded him. Obviously, he made the comment about this is the least hardworking group of position players I've ever seen. I think Starling Marte was a big player he was talking about in that spot, and I'm just looking back to that roster and who he was talking about. And I think it's some other guys. Lindor was the only player on that team that's still around, so maybe he thinks Lindor was not hardworking. I don't know if it was directed at him, but he's a gamer. He's gritty. I have no issue with it. I mean, I think it's a nice payday for him if he does make it. Obviously, he's made more than that in his career, but there's some incentive for him to get there and make a couple $1 million. But yeah, I think he's Jared Young's replacement. Mike Tauchman in 6 to 8 weeks, but then he's got a rehab. So I don't think Mike Tauchman's going to be back until sometime in June. And yeah, I think Pham, what he said was about guys that, I think he was really talking about, in my mind, it was Jeff McNeil and Starling Marte. I think those are the two players he was probably pinpointing when he said that, everyday players. I'm sure there were others on that list. Maybe it was Pete Alonso as well. I hate to get off the side here, but there were issues with that team in 2023 in the clubhouse. And some of the guys that are now gone were a part of those issues and how that team collapsed. And I know fans don't want to hear that because they love a couple of those players, but they were part of the issues starting in 2023. That's where everything started. Because remember, it happened in 2024. If Jose Iglesias wasn't there, the Mets were in the cellar on Memorial Day. Like, this team was cooked. Like, we were ready to write off the season, and then everything changed. And then 2025, great first half, and they imploded. It was vice versa. So I think there were a lot of issues with that clubhouse, with that team. So Tommy Pham, I think what he was saying in 2023 was very accurate about what was going on behind the scenes there. And hopefully all that stuff's behind us. I don't hold a grudge on Tommy Pham. I love to see him work his ass off and make this team because he's got a track record. Jared Young has a track record in the KBO, not in Major League Baseball. And Jared Young seems like a fine fellow. He had an occasional solo pinch hit home run randomly last year. But other than that, I just don't understand the Jared Young fascination. Even today, by the way, you used two players. You went to Young and then you had to go to Alvarez. I get the lefty-righty thing. Why not just pinch it with Alvarez and have him maybe hit a walk-off homer for you? Why use Young and then have to replace Alvarez? That to me was perplexing, just for the righty left. Jared Young I'm sorry, he's not a better hitter than Francisco Alvarez. Just pinch it with Alvarez there. So I didn't love that either. I just don't see why Jared Young continues to be back and stick around. So I do think at some point before Mike Tauchman's back, and it's unfortunate he got hurt, man, because I was pumped for Mike Tauchman. I think his on-base potential, I would have liked to see him play a few times a week. But I think Pham is Jared Young's replacement at some point.
Yeah, and like Shea Parking Lot says, we need Pham too if we need some muscle. I mean, I love his grittiness on the field, and I think that's something that, the Mets seem to lack sometimes. That guy that wants to fight all the time. I think they need one of those players, and Tommy Pham could bring that. He says the ultimate bench clearing wingman. There you go. But as
he's
Kevin,
a wingman, all right. The famous picture of Tommy Pham is the "Do Mills Not Drugs" T-shirt that he wears that went viral. So Tommy Pham is a one of a kind personality. I have a mutual friend with him, and she says he's a great dude. So we'll see. We'll see if he ends up here. I love to see him here, and yeah, he's gritty. And he's been around. He's been in the postseason. Like I said, that Arizona run they went on. Tommy Pham is a big reason they made the playoffs that year for some of the clutch hit he has. He's just kind of a swaggy, cool guy with a chip on his shoulder late in his career. He's had interviews where he said he could go into his 40s. So I like his honesty. I like his honesty, his grit. He's got some speed too. He could steal even at 38, an occasional base for you. So we'll see where he fits in. And by the way, Tyrone Taylor, I think we all like Tyrone Taylor. We all think he's a good defensive player. He's a nice guy. I think he's beloved by his teammates. He's a once-a-week player at this point. Like, I'm not convinced Tyrone Taylor sticks around with this team all year. Like, he's going to have very limited time to show what he could do. We know what he is as a hitter, and it's underwhelming. And by the way, every time they pinch run Tyrone Taylor, they are afraid for him to steal a freaking base. Even over this weekend, I've never seen the Mets use a pinch runner like Tyrone Taylor. I don't think he's attempted one stolen base as a pinch runner. And to me, with the new rules and everything, it's so perplexing to pinch run a guy that you say is your fastest guy off the bench and to never send him. That's where I think Carlos Mendoza as well loses me. He's not aggressive enough. He doesn't play enough small ball, bunt guys over. He doesn't steal enough bases. The Mets need to put themselves in more spots where there is a runner at second and nobody out, because then you're in the ultimate win-win. You can bunt a guy to third and drive him in with a fly ball. There's too many spots where it's runner at second, one out. Why can't we get that guy to second on one of the first couple of pitches? I'd like to see more of that. And Tyrone Taylor, if he's going to have any role for you, he's got to steal a base a week for me. If not, why is he on this roster? Besides being a backup outfielder if someone's hurt, because it seems like Carson Bench is rarely not going to play. Like, We'll see tomorrow what they do. Robert's going to sit tomorrow, but is it going to be Bench now in center and Taylor stays on the bench and Beatty's in right? We'll see what they end up doing. Maybe, Beatty still plays DH or whatever. But
I think Taylor, they got to get Tyrone Taylor in there at center.
He doesn't do enough for them. I just don't know. You're in a tough spot. Again, he doesn't have options. You would kind of just have to cut him and lose a guy that, is a veteran, a clubhouse guy.
Yeah.
But I just don't know his role at this point. So we'll see. I like Tyrone Taylor. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I just don't know what his role is here on this team. And maybe Tommy Pham could swipe in and take his spot.
Well, I saw a conversation between, I think Wardy and Pham were talking, and Pham said he loved playing in New York and he loved the fans. So I'm pretty sure New York fans love his type of gameplay. I definitely do. You like the way Tommy Pham plays, so maybe we do see him at some point real soon on this Mets roster. It's interesting that they, instead of going with the Kimbrel Bruhan, which I probably was the better move, they went Lovelady Young, and maybe I hope that this is the last season that ever happens ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious if there's anyone going to be available here on the scrap heap. I guess it's just going to be Kimbrel up, but the obsession, Mendoza gets it in the lineup too. He likes his lefty, righty, lefty, righty. He likes that just like pitchers. He likes 2 to 3 lefties in the pen. Again, I think it's overrated. I'm fascinated to see where they go, but they're going to have to reach from within and maybe get someone from the minor leagues. Is Nate Lavender still around? Maybe that's a guy.
He's hurt. Point. He's on the IL.
It's what see, I don't know. I the early season IL to me feels like they need more time and
I
they're
think
not
that's
actually
what it
hurt.
is.
Yeah, because Dylan Ross, I don't remember him getting hurt. It feels like they're just not ready for them to be in game action yet and saving them. So
Mhm.
I'm fascinated to see where the Mets go because I think Loveladies got one more outing. If he gives up one single run in the next outing, he better be DFA'd on the flight home.
We'll end with this comment from Kev Chada. Mendoza like a young, lovely lady.
I like that. That works. Yeah, Mendoza, he pushed all the right buttons in 2024, and there was some pixie dust in the air. That pixie
That's the
dust
thing.
was
Like,
gone.
did he push all the right buttons? Like,
There were very few times I questioned his moves, and maybe they just worked. Maybe it was one of those years. 2024 is one of those years. The luck be a Dickie Lovelady tonight. Luck be a lady tonight was the New York Mets in 2024. That didn't happen last year. He is a lame duck manager with an all new coaching staff, and Kai Correa is ready to take his job. If the Mets, if the Mets have, that's going to be the case. If the Mets miss the playoffs, Mendoza will be fired. But listen, the first half of the season, and it's not going to happen, but we're just saying what if. I'm very confident in this Mets team. I picked them to beat the Red Sox in the World Series. Today pissed me off, but I'm still very confident in this team. If it comes to mid-June and the Mets are I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they're 15 games under 500, you have to fire him. There's going to be a point this season where if the Mets are underperforming to a certain level, and I'm not going to say it's all his fault, but if he pushes a button like he did today, you're going to have to fire him. Again, not going to happen, but you're a lame duck manager with an all-new coaching staff. He is in a position to be fired if the Mets fail.
We'll see how this ends up. Hopefully that's not the case, which means the Mets are playing well this season. I mean, they started off well.
They're going to be fine. Let's go. Let's go, yeah. Mets. Go sweep the bum-ass Cardinals and go take 3 out of 4 from the Giants, and we'll be back in action. We just need a night of sleep to get over the Dickie Lovelady experience today.
The Dickie Lovelady on the brain as you go to bed tonight. Jake, it's always fun to have you on the show. Appreciate you. Got to get you on more often. I mean, we got to do this. I know we were trying to schedule with each other for each other's show, and just didn't work out last season. But appreciate you as always for coming on. Let everyone know, what you got coming up. Hit up all your socials, which everyone will be able to find in the description of this podcast as well. But just let everyone know what you got coming up.
Well, if anyone's hiring, I'm looking for a job. So if you have a decent paying job, I'll be a male stripper. If you need a dad-botted bald stripper, I'll do that. I need a job. So message me if your company, I'm good with people. I make friends easily. I'll say it humbly. I'm one of the funnier people in the room when I walk in. So if you need a funny man, a decent looking guy, I'm available for hire. But if not, that's fine as well. You can watch Mets Daily. It's a daily show, 10 to 15 minutes every day on YouTube, Apple, Spotify as well. But it's a video show, so I recommend subscribing to the YouTube. We will have Hank Azaria on April 14th. So excited to have Hank on the show. So check out that. And Nelson Figueroa is on once or twice a month, my old co-host. So check that out. And again, all socials. Been hammering a lot of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter content, a lot of videos, trying to up my social game. So check me out at Jake Brown Live. Subscribe to my YouTube as well. And great to chat. This was a 90-minute experience. I'm in our clubhouse doing this from here. It closes at 10, but it's 11, and I'm the only one here. Clubhouse to myself. Thanks for all the comments, and good to catch up.
Shea Parking Lot saying always a pleasure, Jake. Fantastic show from Maureen. Kev Chada nominates you to replace Mendoza, and then Shea Parking Lot also says, "Can you do the splits?"
No, I can't do the splits, but I do envision, what was it, Little Big League? What was the movie where the manager takes over for the Twins?
That's one, Little Big League, yep.
Little Big. I've had dreams of becoming the Mets manager, maybe as a kid and maybe even now, and no one respects you. None of the players know you, but you win them over and you win a World Series. My current dream is to be on the float with my almost father, Howie Rose. If you don't know the story, Howie Rose asked what would be my mom out in 1982 at a Toyota dealership. And then the time he called my mom 3 weeks later, she started dating what would be my dad. So I either wouldn't be
Jake
born,
Rose right now.
I would have been Jake Rose. I would have replaced Howie next year. In a time where I need a job, it would have been perfect. So Howie should have made that call a few weeks earlier. But I always think of that, that moment of like being the manager, no one knows, no one, all the newspapers are writing bad about you, and then you carry the team to a championship. So listen, Carlos, Kai Correa, you could be my bench coach. You could keep your job. Everyone else, Tim Leiper, you're fired. Everyone else, you could stay. But yeah, isn't that the dream? In our world, the dream is to be Gary Cohen or Howie Rose, and maybe that's enough. Now, I respect Keith Ratt a lot, so Keith is probably going to get that job, and I respect that. But Keith, Pat McCarthy, Jake Brown has a nice ring to it. I used to work at Odyssey, so
maybe you'll do what Pat does once Pat and Keith take that role. Keith's great, by the way. I love Keith. Have him on the show all the time. He's awesome.
They need a third voice. You got my bank information still, Odyssey. I haven't changed banks. So you got my W-2s. Got to do my taxes, by the way, coming up. Anyways, thanks for having me. Sorry, I could do a tangent till midnight, and we'll talk again soon. Let's go, Mets. Let's turn this thing around tomorrow. Let's cut Dickie Lovelady.
Subscribe to Mets Daily. Make sure you're doing that on the YouTube there. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you want to listen to the show, which will be up shortly. But if you want to be a part of the chat and conversation, we had a great chat conversation with everybody in here. I can't name you all, but it was awesome chatting with every single one of you in this room. Great show today. Make sure you are doing that. You can subscribe on YouTube to be a part of the chat. Even on X, I think you can throw some comments in there as well. And shout out to, the super chat, super stickers, super thanks, all that stuff. We had a super chat from BJ the Kid. Appreciate that from earlier on in the show. And this will be the new time slot moving forward permanently. At least during the regular season, we'll do 9:30 p.m. for the Subway to Shea podcast. And then in the off season, we'll move back to the mornings at 10. But we will be here. And then I have some couple of projects we're working on to add to the Subway to Shea channel on YouTube. Be on the lookout for that as well. But for Anthony Rivera, for my guy, Jake Brown, you've been listening to the Subway and been watching the Subway to Shea podcast. And always remember, let's go Mets.